Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, my name's Earl. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I want to thank the committee for asking me to be here. It's always an honor and a privilege to do something like this. Just give me a second. That was a little bit of a shock. I am happy to be here. I'm very grateful to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've had a remarkable evening so far. I came in on a Friday night in the basement of a church. Crazy. I'd spent, I'll start at the beginning. I didn't start drinking until I was 12. I waited as long as I possibly could. I had been restless, irritable, and discontented for quite some time. I lived in a violent home. I would wake up every morning and I would open the door to my bedroom, and there were two ways you could get to the cereal, right? And I would kind of lean my head out the door and I just kind of feel the vibe down each way, just see if I could just sense where the old man was, you know what I mean, so that I could head the other way, you know, and it was 50-50, man, yeah, how you did, right? So, you know, I've been looking over my shoulder since I was 4 years old, and that didn't change much until I was 12, and they started noticing that I was an odd child. I had, whenever they took their eyes off me, I'd just take off. Over the back fence, we lived in these canyons, and I'd go over the canyons, and I'd go down the deer trails at dusk, and I'd pull off the deer trails, and I'd just sit real still at dusk, and I'd just sit there and wait, and the deer would walk by, you know, and I'd be real still, you know, and you know, so basically I was, you know, tripping at 8, you know what I mean? I was just doing it with wildlife, right? And then I got some salt lick, and I would sit down there, and I'd just ease my hand out when they walked by, and eventually they'd stop and lick the salt out of my hand and go by, right? And my mother would ask me, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I go down in the canyons and feed salt to the deer." And she was, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah." You know, so you're not like skateboarding with your friends or anything? No, I hang with a deer. She says, "I'm making a call." So they ran a bunch of tests on me, and they found that I had this real high IQ, right? I don't have it anymore, so I'm not bragging. That's long gone. But there was this boarding school that was like this think tank that was a 4-year school. It had been in existence for 50 years. And they had this, they were going to do this experiment where they were going to have the first 5-year men. They were going to have 8th through 12th grade instead of 9th through 12th grade. They were going to have their first 5-year men. And they gave this 5.5-hour exam. And I guess, I don't know how far they went to find students, right? 16 kids passed this exam, and I was one of them, right? All I knew was I got dragged off to take an exam that lasted all day, and then I got back, you know, got to go home and, you know, hop the fence, right? And one day my father walked in my room and said, "Get in the car." It's like, all right. So I got in the car, and I was walking in the car. There was like my whole family members. It's a caravan of cars, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I got in the car, and you know, and we drove. And we stopped at this place at the base of this mountain, and my father got out of the car, and I got out of the car, and he put a suitcase down next to me, and nobody else got out of the cars, right? And he shook my hand, and he said, "This will make a man out of you." And he got back in the car, and everybody drove off. And I was like, little explanation, please? You know, what's going on? And Turns out that I was the youngest and smallest kid in a school of 250 boys. It was like Lord of the Flies in this joint, right? They had scoured the earth to find 250 of the brightest, most disturbed young men they could find. And there I was, right? And there were 249 13 to 18-year-olds, teenagers, and there was one 12-year-old, me. And that doesn't mean anything but to a 12-year-old. And I was just terrified, man. My heart's beating hard right now just thinking, like, it's like I'm back there, man. It was like awful. And I was scared of my own shadow, and I didn't know why my family had thrown me away, you know, because the fact was I'd been given an opportunity for a wonderful education. It's held me in good stead to this very day. The feeling was I'd been thrown away by the people who knew me best in the world, and I didn't know what I'd done to be thrown away. So I was emotionally devastated, right? I was calling home every night for 3 nights, crying, calling my mother, and just, you know, like a child, a 12-year-old child, right? Saying, you know, listen, you know, just come get me. Bring me home, you know, we won't need to, there'll be no mention of it. We won't have to, you know, there'll be no discussion necessary. We're just going to act like this didn't happen, you know, and all will be well. And in the background, you'd hear my father going, hang up, you know, and my mother, oh, gotta go, click. And after 3 days, it was like something broke inside me. And I thought, you know what? You don't want me, I don't want you. And I turned my back on my family, and I pretty much never went back, right? So I'm wandering around this campus with my books under my arm, right, you know, 5 feet tall, 103 pounds, 12 years old, manhood right around the corner. Right? And Tiny found me. Every high school's got a guy named Tiny, right? He's like 240, you know, 6'2", plays guard on the football team, you know. Actually, he found me. And he looked at me and he said, how you doing, punk? And he slapped me in the back of the head and sent me and my books flying across the quad, right? He didn't realize that he hadn't just slapped a little kid. He had slapped a lunatic, you know, that had grown up in a violent home who was willing to fight to the death over virtually anything, right? So I just got up and went over and belted him as hard as I could. Now, I knew, is there a 1,000,000 to 1 chance that I'm going to take Tiny? Probably not. Right? But that wasn't the point. The point was I had just been humiliated publicly by this guy, and I'm not going to stand there and take that. So I went over there and swung, right? And then stood my ground, knowing what was coming next, right? And he looked down at me and he said, you got a lot of guts, kid. And then he beat the crap out of me, right? I mean, and it was ugly, right? Because it was one of those ones where I just kept getting up, you know? I mean, guys that didn't even know me were like, dude, stay down, stay down. And eventually, I couldn't get back up, right? And so everybody dispersed, you know, and then I went back to my room, and I'm sitting there waiting for the bleeding to stop, and I got knots on my head, and I'm a mess, right? And I'm sitting there thinking my life sucks, you know? I mean, just days ago, I was home feeding deer, tripping in the canyons, you know? Life was cool, right? Now I'm getting assaulted by giant people. My family's throwing me away, you know what I mean? I'm taking Latin, you know what I mean? What's you know, I don't get it, man. And word spread across this campus like wildfire. Watch out for this little Hightower kid. He's a maniac. He attacked Tiny, right? So now my inner life and external life are rocketing in opposite directions, right? I'm a frightened child who is now known as a maniac, right? And the cool guys started coming around, and Matt stuck his head in my room. And I'm a child of the 60s. I talk about drugs. I identify as an alcoholic. I'll explain to those who might be highly offended by the mention of drugs. And I understand, but I am who I am. And Matt stuck his head in my room and he said, hey, you want to smoke a joint? And I said, yes, I do. And I didn't even know what he was talking about. You know, I had no idea what that meant. All I heard was, do you want to come with us? And the answer was, yeah, man, I'm like alone in the universe. I feel like an astronaut or something, you know what I mean? It's like he could have said, look, we're going to go kill a Spanish teacher. Do you want to go? I would have said, yeah, I'm in. Let's go, you know? You know? I'll watch the door. Yeah. You know? We went we picked up Steve on the way, and Steve had a Tupperware container full of cheap red wine wrapped in aluminum foil. And I mean cheap red, no grapes involved red wine, you know what I mean? A little bit of the Mad Dog, you know what I mean? And we went behind the dorm, 2 13-year-olds and a 12-year-old, babies, babies, standing behind the rock. You can see this big tree, this big oak tree that was standing right next to us, right? And Matt, Mr. Cool, 13-year-old Mr. Cool, right, fired up a joint and took a hit and handed it to me, and I just took it and did what he did, and it burned my lungs. I'm like, whoa, right? Give me the wine, right? Give me the wine. I took a pull on that wine, man, and it did that vapor action thing, you know what I mean, that wine will do, right? And it was like, oh, you know, give me that joint back, you know? You know, and it just started, you know, like this, and I'm standing there going, I don't get it, you know? I'm feeling a little nauseous, right? There's a very large person out there that clearly hates my guts. My family's throwing, I mean, I don't know, my life, for some reason, just keeps getting, I mean, like, by the hour now, it's getting worse and worse and worse. I'm going to be dead by Thursday. This is, what did I do? You know what I mean? And I mean, just, it happened. That thing that makes me bodily and mentally different from my fellows occurred. And suddenly I was comfortable standing where I was standing, doing what I was doing with the people I was doing it with. And I'd never felt like that before in my life, man. I was comfortable in my own skin. I was you know, and I didn't know that what had happened is that alcohol and drugs had taken me out of now, which is the only place you can live your life, is right now. And right here, right now, I feel restless, irritable, and discontented. Right here, right now, I'm comparing my insides to your outsides, and I'm losing every time, right? And I got out of now. And there was an ease and contentment that came with that, a freedom that came with that I'd never known my whole life. And I got to remember that in the beginning it worked perfectly for me, because that was the elixir, you know, that I had been looking for my whole life, man. Nobody died that night. Nobody went to prison. No blood was drawn. Nobody went to the nut house. You know, I mean, all that was, nobody died. All that was going to happen. But none of it happened that night. Feel better than you've ever felt before in your life. Wake up the next morning. It's all good, right? So I woke up the next morning, and my first thought was, I got to find Matt, right? And I did. And we went after it again, and I drank and used for the next 16 years no matter what, right? Given a good reason many, many, many times along the way to stop, and I never touched the brakes because I'm an alcoholic, and I can't stop. I can't. The thought of that is absolutely terrifying to somebody like me. You know, there's a certain point when it just becomes like your breath. You know, it's my identity. It's the center of who I am. It's the center of my world, right? So my progression was pretty quick. You know what I mean? 60s, you know, we weren't focused on the alcohol. We were focused on the drugs because our parents were the alcoholics, and, you know, we were going to, you know, be the drug addicts and kill ourselves in a whole new way. We weren't, you know, like our parents, right? So we were focused. But the fact of the matter is that drugs are completely unreliable. They are. There's no quality control going on out there. You have no idea what you got till you get it in your body. You go get yourself a fifth of Jack Daniels. You go get yourself a good quart of gin. You know what you got going, right? So if you got, no matter what else was going on, and my drug of choice was, what do you got, right? I mean, I like heroin, barbiturates, alcohol. These are a few of my favorite things. I mean, I like my idea of a good night sitting around checking my pulse, right? That's a good night for me. But if you don't have any of that, let's go. Can't go down, let's go up. You know what I mean? Because it's not really about up or down. It's about, I got to get out of right here, right now, right? So there was always a bottle on the table, and the reason for that is because it was reliable, and I had a job that needed to get done. I needed to kill the fear. I had to kill that fear. And there's a deep barrel of emotions inside me, and there's all sorts of stuff swimming around on top, right? And nobody ever feels, I don't know about you, but I don't feel one thing at a time. I got way too much going on up in here. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, nice room. You know, she's hot. Chicken's good. Coffee's, I like that tasty. Hey, I haven't seen him before. Hey, who's that? What's going on over there? You know, I mean, that's just, you know, I'm just comfortable being that guy, you know? You know? It's nonstop, right? I just went 8 different places right there. So, what the hell was I talking about, right? Yeah, so it was the humble beginnings, you know what I mean? It was a little weed and a little red wine for me, man. And 13 was pills, and the only reason I took a pill was the guy said, would you like a couple of pills? And I said, yes, I would. 20 minutes later, I'm laying on the floor, and I'm very happy there, right? You know, so got strung out on barbiturates, you know, at 13. 14 was psychedelics. The only reason I took a psychedelic is I was on a 10-hour pass and with a girl named Debbie. Debbie was a very bad girl. I'll love her till the day I die. And Debbie said, would you like to drop some acid? And I said, yes, I would. Again, no idea what we're talking about, right? And she took a lipstick tube and spun it up, and on the end of it was a little pill. And I thought, yeah, that's clever. Popped it in my mouth, swallowed it, and she said, did you take that whole thing? And I said, yes, I did. It was a very small, was a very tiny pill. And she said, well, that was 3 hits of white lightning. Okay, these people over here need constant supervision. It was clearly that side, wasn't it? I mean, it was. Yeah. And I almost feel like I should go, all right. Right. The 650 hits later, I got classified legally insane by the military, but that's a whole other story. I went to enlist, and they said, no, thank you, which I thought was a little rude. I was the only guy in my group that was willing to go to Vietnam, and they wouldn't, We don't want anything you got going on over there. 16, I started shooting dope, and the only reason I shot dope is I was on a boat in Marina del Rey with a girl named Cammie Romer. Lovely girl. I can say her whole name because there's no way she could be alive today. And she said, would you like me to stick this in your body? And I said, yes, I would. And she did, and it was one of those shots where you just go, right? And all I remember thinking on the way down was, if I'm not dead, I'm doing that again, because that was fantastic, right? It was just instant what problems. I couldn't remember feeling bad about anything, right? Now I'm drinking the whole time, right? I'm doing all this other stuff, but the only thing that's happening none of that's happening every day. It's this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. Alcohol every day, drinking every day, starting out the morning with something and a bottle every day, starting it out. By the time I'm 19 years old, I'm full blown. I mean, full blown, late stage alcoholic, you know, severe addiction. I mean, it's just, I'm overdosing. I mean, it's bad. I'd gotten accepted to college, a business college in Northern California. Long story. Don't have time for that one either. But I ended up in business college. I'm studying marketing, production, distribution. I'm applying it to my drug business. Business is booming. I think college is awesome, right? You know, and I got this whole criminal enterprise going, right? And then they have a health fair at college, right? Bad idea. I said, oh, well, I'll go to the health fair, right? So I go to the health fair, and they go, you have malignant cancer. And I went, fantastic. So I flew back to L.A., and they did a bunch of tests on me, and they said, you got late-stage cancer. You need to get your affairs in order. And I just laughed. I remember thinking, dude, I'm a 19-year-old drug addict alcoholic, right? I make 2 phone calls. We're pretty much good to go here. I got getting my affairs in order. And I mean, I really remember feeling struck that I was 19 years old, I was in college, and I had done absolutely nothing of any value for another human being in my entire life. I had led a completely selfish, self-centered life up to that point. And it struck me, right, that I was completely directionless. directionless. I had no idea where I was going, what I wanted to do. I had no goals or dreams or aspirations. I was just getting on through. I was just getting on through, getting the next thing done, getting through the next thing. And that's kind of the way it is, when you're an alcoholic, when you're a drug addict, is, you're getting sick, you're getting better, you're getting well, you're getting sick, you're getting better, you're getting well, you're getting this hustle together, you're getting that done. You're just working all the time, man, on it. It just starts growing in your life like a cancer, and it just takes over, right? So I fly back to L.A., and they do major surgery on my upper back, take about 1.5 pounds out of my upper back, around my spine. And I beat the cancer thing. They put me in nuclear medicine, they called it back then. Now they call it chemotherapy. And I didn't like those drugs. They made me sick. I didn't like, so I went home and used mine. And I beat the thing, right? I'm in a long-term cancer survivor, 40 years now. And over 40 years, 42 years. Thanks. And as far as the daily course of my life is concerned, it seems like such a small thing. You know what I mean? Like I go to the dermatologist once every 6 months. I come to you every day. Then I went back to college, and I'm back up at college, and my mother calls me. I'm 21 years old, and I'm starting to overdose a lot, you know what I mean? And it's just getting really bad, and the drugs are getting less and less and less, and the alcohol is getting more and more and more, because I'm needing things to, I can't screw around anymore, I can't be hip, slick, and cool, as a 60s hippie, and be doing the drugs. I mean, I need my alcohol. I got to get it done. You know what I mean? I can't wait around to find out if it's going to work or not, and then we start with alcohol, right? And I'm moving that way. And my mother calls me, and she's crying, which, by the way, for all the mothers in the room, not cool. I mean, no defense against the weeping mother, right? So she's weeping and says, we haven't been a family for 10 years. We'll go anywhere you want to go for your birthday, but we need to go as a family. We're putting this family back together now. It's been 10 years that you've been away. And I said, oh, fine. Not realizing what I'd said, right? So the date came, so I flew back to L.A., and on November 7th, 1974, we took off to fly to Guadalajara, and the plane crashed. And my mother, my father, my little sister all died in the crash, and I survived. And I woke up in Mexico and in the wreckage, and my skull was fractured, my back was broken in 3 places, my leg was crushed, my arm was crushed, I had a lot of internal injuries, a lot of other broken bones. I was paralyzed from the waist down, and I was awake. And I woke up, and the only thing I could move was my right arm, and I was somehow, when the plane busted in half and it hit, my seat got ripped loose and got kind of like ejected from the plane and landed in the dirt. And I was in my seat that wasn't attached to anything else, right? So my mother was laying right over there, and my little sister was over, Kimberly was there, and my father was over there, and I couldn't, and I thought, I got to help him, Today's the day, we're going to be a family today. It's my birthday. We're going to be a family. And I unbuckled my seatbelt and just fell out on the ground because I couldn't walk. And I couldn't get to any of them to help them. And I lay there and I watched them all bleed to death in front of me. And I renounced God. And it wasn't one of these like Hallmark, shake your fist at the sky, screaming, I hate you, God, look what you've done, blah, blah, blah. But it was just this real quiet thing, man. It was just, you know what? I'm out, man. Any God that would take a kind, loving, gentle, poetic creature like my little sister Kimberly and leave a lying, thieving, cheating, dope fiend alcoholic like me on the planet, man, I got no use for a God of this type, and I renounced God. And then some guys came up to the wreck site, and I got my wallet out, and I got my driver's license out because I knew I was dying, and I got my driver's license out, and I said, this is who I am, so you know. And the guy just swatted it out of my hand, took the money out of my wallet, and they went around and took what they could find of value, and they left me up there to die. So I was out with you too, man. I had no use for you either. I had no love of man. I had no love of God. I was out. And then some guy, and I remember just feeling this anger that was like a white-hot poker, man. And I think it kept me alive because I was shocking out, and I knew enough about injuries because I'd been injured pretty significantly before, which has got nothing to do with any of this, but I'd been injured before, and I knew that the shock is what'll kill you, right? So, and I had busted ribs, so I just kept taking my arm and slamming it into my side, into my ribs, and it hurt so bad when I did that, it just would like pull me up out of the shock. The pain was keeping me alive. So I just kept inflicting pain on myself, and finally some guys came up and they grabbed me and they threw me in the bed of a flatbed truck with my mother, and I held my mother's hand, and they took me to an aid station, and I didn't die, and they took me to Hospital Fatima in Los Mochis, Mexico. And the federales found out who I was, so here they came. Had a little issue with the Mexican government. We don't need to get into that either, all right? But they were not happy to see me on their sovereign soil. So here came the federales with an interpreter, and they interrogated me for 3.5 days. That means they wouldn't give me anything for pain, and they tortured me. That's what that means. And finally, after 3.5 days, I got a phone, and I called some guys up north that I was working with, and they got a plane. They flew the plane in, paid a bunch of guys off. They plastered me from the neck down, flew me out of Mexico, got me into a hospital in Santa Monica. I spent a long time in there. I brought a guy in, got a custom-made leather brace, back brace made for myself with 3 metal rods in the back, and I had a cane because I'd had a trilateral fracture. My ankle was just thrashed, and so I still had a cast on that. And I walked out of that hospital strung out on Demerol because I've been getting maximum shots every 3 hours around the clock, right, for a long time. And I knew I had 3 hours to connect, so I called my buddies and said, I need you to pick me up the right way, and they knew what that meant. So they picked me up, and I hooked up, and I went on my last run, and it lasted for 6 years. And most people that are out there drinking and using have some kind of an anchor, some thread that connects them to the real world, to mankind, to humanity. They're trying, they got a goal, a career, an aspiration, a dream. They got a wife, a daughter, a son, a husband. They have some connection that they, I gotta keep it in check. I gotta rein it in. I gotta hold it together for my kids and my husband, so whatever. I didn't have anything. Everybody was dead. It was all over with. The only people I hung with are people I did business with. You know what I mean? And there was no love there. So it was just this cold, dark place that I was in. And I just let it rip, man. And I was overdosing left and right, and the violence was insane. And I'm going to get sober. At the end of that 6 years, I was 215 pounds. I had hair down on my waist. I was yellow. My thyroid had shut down. The sac around my heart was swollen. Couldn't touch my liver. My kidneys were so angry. I was psychotic, and I don't use the term loosely. Could not distinguish between the true and the false, as a certain book tells us. I came out of my last blackout, and there'd been hundreds of them. Blackouts are the normal fare for me. I can do 4 days. I don't know what it is, but I do 4-day blackouts. When I come to, I can bet the last thing I remember will be 4 days ago. That's how long I go. And I've come to in different cities. I came to one time, I was sitting in my living room, minding my own business, just going to have a cocktail. Not even a drink. I was just going to have a cocktail. Right? Blink. I'm talking to this girl's just chatting away at me in the back of this car. There's 3 of us in the back seat, 2 people in the front. We're driving down the freeway. She's just chatting me up, man. I have no idea who any of these people are. And, but I've done this so many times, it's just like, well, did it again, right? So, you just kind of like, hey, yeah, nice, yeah, you look great, by the way, and then looking at the freeway signs, trying to get a landmark, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get a landmark. Where am I? I'm getting nothing. I'm coming up blank, right? So finally I look at her and I go, honey, listen, where are we? And she just laughs and I go, seriously, where are we? She goes, we're in Oakland. And I go, fantastic. I do not know a single soul in Oakland. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Take me to the airport. She's like, why? Just go to the airport. So we go to the airport. I fly back to L.A. I get in a cab. I go back to my house. My front door's open. I walk in. TV's on. There's a drink sitting by the chair, right? I just sit down and go, well, I'll have the drink now then, I guess. A little watery, but, that's all right, I've had many a beer with a cigarette butt in it and not spit it out, right? That would be wasteful.
obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308 or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
So, I came out of the last blackout, and I know all those things are true, and also my family's dead. I got no place. I got no friends. I got no place to live. I'm completely and totally alone in the world. I've been lonely for so long I don't even know I'm lonely anymore, right? And that's the thing, you see, is that all that stuff that was going on out here in my life, none of that was going to stop me from drinking. None of it. Because I was only using to keep me on my feet so that I could drink the way I needed to drink at this point, right? None of that was going to stop me. I wasn't suicidal, but death had become an acceptable consequence of the way I went at it, right? And they talk about a moment of clarity in here, and my moment of clarity was I wasn't connected to another human being on the face of the earth, and that was the direct result of my alcoholism. And if I didn't want to die, I was going to have to find consciousness other than that which I currently possessed right now. Because if I used my own best thinking one more day, I was going to die, right? They were also deciding whether or not to charge me with the attempted murder of David Luboff. So there were cops outside. There was an ambulance outside. There was a cop car outside. And they were all out there having a big talk about which one to throw me in, right? So all of a sudden, I have this moment, and I throw up these two busted, my hands, both my hands were broken at the time. I threw up two broken hands, and I just went, help. And there was a woman there that knew me, and she went, he said it, and she just grabbed me and threw me in the ambulance, and the ambulance was gone before anybody knew what happened, right? They took me to UCLA Emergency, they pumped my stomach and said, get him out of here, he's going to die. They took me to Long Beach General Hospital, Olive View Medical Center was the next stop. And I go to Olive View Medical Center, right, and I'm sick. I am so sick, right? And they take me into my room, and I got a roommate, right? And I go into this room, and on the other bunk is this guy who's like this long dude. He's like 6'2", 6'4", I don't know. I'm 5'8". If you're over 6, it's 6 something to me, right? You know what I mean? He's just 6 something over there, you know? And he's leaning up facing the wall. He's, you know, facing the wall laying there. He's got long, black, greasy hair. This guy is just a mess, right? Turns out he's an old junkie. You realize how rare that is, right? It's like I'd found a unicorn, you know what I mean? It's like this old junkie laying there, right? And I sit down and I go, you know what I mean? I'm like shaking and, you know, twitching and quivering and just sick. You know, it's like we were, looking for where the bathroom is. Oh man, I'm a mess. And the guy rolls over and he looks at me and he goes, dude, you don't look good. I'm like, oh my God, man. I'm like the lower companion in here, right? So I stay there like 3 or 5 more days, and I get worse, and they take me by ambulance to a place called Long Beach General Hospital, and the detox there was free, right? And it was 42 cots in one room, 21 cots on each side of the room with sheets drawn between the cots, right? And how you kicked it was called riding the cot, right? You just got in that cot, and when you get in an army cot like that, you kind of sink in, you know, and the rails are kind of up a little bit, you know what I mean? You just grab those rails and ride, baby. And that's what I did. I made the commitment, man. This is it, living or dying right here, right? I'm going to ride this cot, because nobody was coming around at night going, you a little anxious tonight, Earl? Can I get you a little something for that anxiety? Nobody was coming by. They were just like, good night, click, you know, and you're like, huh? You know? No, and nobody slept because somebody's freaking out every minute. Some guys all of a sudden get up going, nope, can't do it, running around the room, banging his head against the wall, flipping out. Some other guy's having a seizure and just bucking right up out of the cot, right? Unfortunately, that was me on a couple of occasions, you know what I mean? You just get that uh-oh, and then the next thing you know, you're coming to, you know, and you're on the other side of the thing, right? They shoot you full of anticonvulsants and go, he's okay, throw him back in the cot, right? And then you're back in the cot going, yeah, I feel great. All right, fine. Right? I spent 47 days in that cot. And I came out of there, and my counselor, Ray W., said to me, if you don't want to die, you better go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the only place a guy like you has a chance. And after all I'd been through in my life, when he said that to me, he didn't say, he just said, go to AA or die. And I just went, really? Come to this, has it? Gotta go to the A&A. I know what happens there, you know. I know all about it. Never been there, but I know all about it. Bunch of guys sitting around in a circle. You're going to walk in. How you doing there? What's your name? Bob. What's up, Bob? Well, I'm not drinking. I'm not drinking today. All right, Bob. All right. What are you doing later? Well, I don't think I'm going to drink later. Riveting, Bob. Listen, I'm kind of new to this thing. You got any ideas for me? Because, you know, grasping at straws over here, buddy. What's going on in here? Not good. It's not good at all. And he said, well, you probably shouldn't drink either. It's like, just shoot me now, man. And the guy goes, just shut up and go. And I'm like, fine, I'll go, right? So I end up in the basement of a church on a Friday night with that guy in that yellow shirt right over there who ran the Friday night Tri-God meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Right, sitting right there. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Come on, raise your hand, brother. Do it. You're only the 34th person to turn me down today. All right. So, I walked in, I sat in the back row with my arms folded, mad dog and everybody, looking where all the doors and windows were, so, you know, I could, you know, knew how if I got to run for it, I know I had to do it, right? And I scan the room, see who's got the power in the room, because when you're an old drug dealer, you learn how to read the room and read who's got the power, right? Slide up on the guys that got the power, burglarize the conversation, find out what they got going on. Look over, they got these scrolls up on the wall. They got traditions. Apparently those are for the group. I'm not a group. Don't need those. Got some steps over here. These are for me. All right. These are for the individual. I read those. I said, okay, I got that. Anything else you need? Anything else I need? Is that all I need? Have I got it? And so I sit down thinking, I got this knocked, man. One meeting, in and out. Boom. Got the AA thing just in, with a bow, right? And then they said, our speaker today is Bill. And I was like, what? Speaker? You mean I got to listen to a guy talk? And the guy's like, yeah. Like, okay, so this guy gets up and he goes, yeah, I'm Bill, I'm an alcoholic. And he shares his experience, strength, and hope. And I don't know that's what he's doing. But he talks about how he used to drink. And I go, yeah, I can completely identify with that. And then he goes, then this thing happened to me, that just kind of just flipped everything on its ear. And I went, yeah, me too. And then he talked about what his life was today. And I went, well, you left me there, buddy, because I got none of that going on. Right? But what happened was, it was that without me realizing it, AA did what it's always done to me. It just quietly, without a lot of fanfare, just reached in and turned the pilot light on. I went from hopeless to some hope. And I left there thinking, I knew so little about AA, this was my plan. I said, that guy was great. I'm going to come back and hear that guy next week. Because I thought this is where that guy talked, right? So I went back the next week to that meeting, and I went there, and I sat and let him do all the blah, blah, blah they do beforehand that I'm not interested in, right? Because I want to hear, what he's got to say, because that guy was pretty cool, right? And they said, and our speaker tonight is Betty. And I'm like, time out. Who's Betty, and where's the guy that was here last week? I came to hear that guy. And they go, what do you mean the guy last week? The guy that speaks here. And the guy next to me goes, you're new, aren't you? And I go, why are you bringing that up? I see no reason to bring that up. Right? And he goes, no, we have a different speaker every week, and we have different kind of meetings, and we have this and we have that. And I went, stop. My head's going to explode. I'm good with get car, go meeting, hear Bob, go home. That's all I got. That's all I got. And Bob's not here, so I'm getting really anxious, okay? So, and while this is happening, the 75-year-old woman, with a little summer dress and a little hair helmet, a little gray helmet, she's moving towards the podium, boy. She's almost there. And I'm just like, oh my God, right? And Betty gets up there and she goes, hi, Betty, and I'm like, alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, hi, Betty. Oh. And then Betty says, I'll never forget it. Betty goes, well, when I used to drink, if you were reasonably good looking, you could take 50 cents and go into a bar and drink for 2 weeks. And then she broke down how you go about doing that. And by the time she was done talking, I looked at the guy next to me and I went, Betty's a badass. I would so roll with Betty, man. Betty was fantastic. And I'm left and I went, what is going on here, man? I'm identifying with a 75-year-old woman. I'm 28 years old. I'm confused. I'm very, very confused. And apparently some of this was coming. I wasn't using my inside voice. I was using my outside voice. And you know, I was like in the parking lot, just kind of like. And the guy walked up to me and he said, "You look like a guy who needs a sponsor." And I'm like, "Okay, you know, who are you and what are we talking about?" And he goes, "A sponsor is somebody who's got what you want." And I said, "Well, I would like to drink, so maybe it's a little early to throw the ball back in my court, maybe." And he goes, "Well, I think a good idea is to get a sponsor who's got what you want." I'm sorry, a sponsor. You should get a sponsor who's got what he wants, right? That's a good sponsor, right? So I listen. All of a sudden, I go to this meeting, and this guy comes flying into the room, right? This, right? I mean, he's the kind of guy that walks in the room, and you just go, "Hey, who's the big gay guy?" Right? And he comes walking in, he speaks, and I went, "That guy." And my friends are like, "Seriously? That's the guy you want?" And I said, "Yep, I want him." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because that guy's fearless, man. That guy doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. That guy, he could care less what anybody thinks about him. And his love of Alcoholics Anonymous is without end. And the way he talks about this, I get it. I get that guy. And I want what he wants. I want to feel strongly about something in my life. And I don't feel strongly about anything. I'm dead inside. So give me an outrageous, out-of-control guy who's throwing newcomers in his car every day and going to meetings and getting that book out and having a book study. Get me that guy. That's that guy. I want him." Right? And they went, "Okay." So I went up to the late, great Donald Madden, and I said, "Will you sponsor me?" And he said, "Yes. And you don't have to like what I tell you, and you don't have to think it's a good idea. You just have to do it, baby." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't realize it had been so long since I'd asked anybody for anything. I just put my head down on the desk and started sobbing, right? And his assistant was sitting over there behind me, and Donald looks over me to his assistant, and he says, "Oh, isn't it wonderful he's destroyed?" And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Right? This guy likes it that I'm destroyed. And what he meant was that there wasn't a lot in the way, that he could like teach me, and it was just like putting stuff in an empty vessel. You know what I mean? You know, he was going to say go to a meeting, and I was going to say when do you want me there? You know, which is exactly how it went. Like he would say, and my social skills were very limited still. I was a very angry young man, right? Because I was scared to death, and I couldn't walk around going, I'm afraid. So I acted really angry all the time, right? Because that's how we mask our fear, us guys. We act like, you know, we're going to kill somebody at any moment, right? So he would call me up and go pick up Ed on the corner of 6th and Santa Monica and be at Ohio Street at 7:30. And I'd go, click. And I'd go, "Oh, okay. Right? Thanks for calling, by the way. Already not on the phone anymore, Donald Madden." Right? You know? So, like, I got to go to 6th and Santa Monica, and I'm in the car, you know, driving, you know, I'm like 18 months at this point, and it hasn't gotten a lot better yet, right? And I'm driving down to 6th and I go, well, if I'm not mistaken, there's 4 corners at Santa Monica and 6th. Right? And at this particular hour, there's a lot of people around there, right? How the hell am I going to spot this guy? There's no way I'm going to find Ed. This is just madness. He didn't give me enough information. Now I'm like half a block away, and I'm going, there he is right there. Right? Because there's a guy standing on the corner like this. Gotta be Ed. I pull up and I go, "Ed, get in the car." So Ed go, "Oh yeah, okay, great." Ed gets in the car and goes, "Hey, this is great. I got 6 days. My wife took me back in. My job took me back. Everything seems really going great. This AA stuff is not bad, man. I think I really like this. Do you have any idea who's speaking tonight? I think it's going to be, is it a woman or a man? I'm not sure what's happening this week. I'm there." And Ed's like, "Shut up, Ed. You got 6 days. You're already doing better than me. Just be quiet." Just be quiet. He's like, "Okay." So I said, "Look, when we get to the meeting, we'll go to the meeting. If you need a ride back to 6th and Santa Monica or someplace else, just let me know and I'll take you." Because I already know he's going to say, who's he? You'll see. He's going to say, "Take Ed back where he needs to go. So I'm your ride." And he said, "Cool." Right? So that was kind of how it began for me. And then they said, you know, so the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous welcomed me in. Right? And I found myself amongst people who had what I wanted. There were people around me who were comfortable sober. They hadn't just kicked. They hadn't dealt with the physical phenomena of craving. They dealt with the obsession of the mind, just like the book talks about, right? They had worked the 12 steps, and as a result of working the 12 steps, they'd been relieved of the obsession to drink and use. They were free for the first time in their lives, and I wanted that. So I got into the book, and I read the doctor's opinion in the first 164 pages, and I went through, 8 of us went through it, right? And I found out it was pretty simple. It was like, step 1 was, what's the problem? Well, lack of power is my... Well, actually, there's this triangle with a circle around it, right? That's the symbol. Ancient spiritual symbol. Stands for mind, body, and spirit brought together as a whole human being. And that was the balance that I was seeking, and I could never find drunk or sober. Alcoholics Anonymous adopted the symbol and said unity, service, and recovery. It's the same thing. Unity's the body, I bring it here. I couldn't stay sober, but we seem to be able to. It's the first word in the steps, we, right? The recovery's of the mind, the greater aspect of this illness, right? The thing that makes it impossible for me to stay stopped. Because this isn't about stopping drinking. This is about how do I stay stopped. And the only way I'm going to stay stopped is if I can get comfortable sober. And I'm not going to get comfortable sober unless I'm relieved of the obsession to drink. So I got to work those 12 steps. That's what they're for, right? So step 1 is, what's the problem? Lack of power is my dilemma. I may be okay at a lot of other stuff, but when it comes to drinking, man, I'm out of my mind. I leave the rails. If that's my problem, what's my solution? That a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession to drink. It's got to be that, because I've tried everything and I get drunk every time, right? Step 3 says, okay, knowing that, you're going to have to do something about this. What should you do? Well, it says here you should turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. I said, well, I don't understand God, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I got down on my knees and I turned my will and my life over to the care of a God I didn't understand. That was the best I could do, right? So I did it. And I think it's okay that I don't understand the infinite. I'm pretty comfortable with that. And what I think is so cool about that is that if you have a profound faith, bring it. No conflict here, right? Bring your faith. If you're agnostic, come on in. Wrestle with it in here. You devout atheist, like a friend of mine is, devout atheist. Cool. She died 22 years sober, devout atheist. They said, you have to have a higher power. She said, okay, Neil Young. And I'll never forget at her memorial service, there were just legions of women that she had helped over the years. And I'll never forget this one guy said, isn't it interesting that this atheist led such a life, a spiritual life of service to others? And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool, that she had access to that, being who she was, that she got to play along too, right? So that's all there in step 3, right? Step 4 and 5 is me, 6 and 7 is God, 8 and 9 is everybody else. That's the whole team. There's nobody else to play with. And this is where it starts to get really deep for me. This is where that whole, tripping thing comes into play, right? It's like, it's got to get deep or I don't want to play, right? And it's like, me, God, and you. That's everybody. And you get to reboot, reconfigure, reframe, erase the slate, start, shake the etch-a-sketch of your mind, do whatever you need to do, man. But you get a blank slate, and you get to rebuild your life any way you want. Because what Alcoholics Anonymous does is it builds the foundation upon which you can stand a free man or free woman, no longer enslaved by alcohol or drugs. The next step's on you. What are you going to do with it? Right? That's what they do. They get you in the game and they give you these tools for living. So when it's good, you can enjoy it. And when it's bad, you got the tools to deal with it so that you minimize the wreckage until things get good again. Because that life kind of goes like that, right? It's on its terms, not mine, right? So I got to go with the flow, right? So 4 and 5 is me, and I swallow large chunks of truth about myself, and I read these to another individual before this God, right? I read it. He listens. When it's over, he says, good luck with all that. He gets out of the house, right? 6 and 7, I hook it back up with God, asking God to remove the defects of character because I'll remove the wrong stuff. And then, for me, it's just consciousness beyond my own, right? That I need to know that there's consciousness beyond my own. That I'm not it. It's not me. And the first step in that for me was one day in a nursery. I'm standing in a nursery, and I'm looking at an orchid. And an orchid is a magnificent thing. And I was just looking at this thing, and I just looked at it just a second too long, And I just sort of like fell into a parallel universe. And I was just in there. And I don't know how long. I just kind of pulled out, and I looked over at my wife, and I went, we're going to need a lot of these. This stuff is amazing, right? And what happened to me was, I thought, wow, I'm breathing in oxygen. I'm breathing out carbon dioxide. It's breathing in the carbon dioxide, breathing out the oxygen. We got a little thing going on right here, right? We got a little partnership. We got a little agreement, right? That there's something going on here that's beyond anything I understand. And every time I go, and there's plants everywhere. You know, it's not like you got to go, we need to go find a plant quick, you know what I mean, to see consciousness on their own. I get to walk outside. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there. They're all over the place, all different kinds. It's amazing. I'm a plant guy, right? So it's like, yep, God, yep, power grid to myself, yep, just everywhere. It's just a wonderful way to go about it. It's just like this instant reminders. Like some guys have a rubber band on their wrist that they snap to remind them of things. Plants do it for me. All I got to do is see a plant and go, yeah, not me. Yeah, it ain't me, right? And I go. 10 is, let's go through them again. 1, no. 10, I can take personal inventory when I'm wrong, promptly admit it. Right? Because I'll wait till like, June. So, promptly admit it, because I want to be free. How free do you want to be, man? Just let it go. Let it go. 10, 11, and 12 keep me in the game. 8 and 9 I left out. Sorry, 8 and 9 is everybody else, right? Very, very sorry, and I'm not going to speak to anybody like that anymore, disrespectfully. And to make amends means to change, so I'm going to stop doing that. And yeah, I stole your car, and I estimate the value of the car. Oh, yeah, that was me, sorry. Yeah, I estimate the value of the car at $40,000 at the time of the theft, and I'm going to give you this much money back every month at whatever rate of interest you deem appropriate until that's paid back. And I'm not going to steal your car and go sell it to pay you for the car I stole from you, because I've made it's an amend. I'm changing. I'm out of the car thieving game, right? 10 is me, 11 is God, and 12 is everybody else. Keeps me in the game, keeps me rolling. 4 and 5 me, 6 and 7 God, 8 and 9 everybody else, right? 10 me, 11 God, 12 everybody else, right? 10, I continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11, I seek God through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. Praying only for His will for me and the power to carry that out. No more deals. No more deals. What will you have me do? Right? And the third side of the triangle, service. How can I help? Right? Continue, right? Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of working these steps, I can practice these principles and carry the message. How can I help? Not because I'm a good guy, right? Because I don't want to die drunk. Right? That's how I don't want to die drunk. I want to be with you. I've been with you for 34 years. I don't want to go anywhere. I like it here. I've always liked it here. I've always gone to meetings. I've always had a sponsor. I've only had 3. I've always had a sponsor. I've always sponsored guys. I've always had commitments. I've always done the whole deal. Because it's so simple. Go to regular meetings regularly, get a sponsor, work the steps, and get out of yourself and be of service to somebody else. You're in the game. It's pretty cool, right? Or a horrific death. Give it some thought and get back to me. So what is my life like today? Right? I got this amazing life. I got an amazing life. I've been blessed. I've had a great life. I've been able to be, I have a very consistent, ongoing 12-step life. I have a very consistent and ongoing professional life. The dividing line between the two, despite what some people might think, is extremely well-defined. And I'm a very happy, unapologetic, successful, happy man. Very much so. I'm married to a wonderful woman. I actually know who she is. She actually knows who I am. We've been together 17 years. That is impossible for somebody like me to stay in one place that long. I'm 62 years old. I'm an old man. You have no idea how proud I am of that. I'm 30 past anything anybody ever thought I was going to get. Right? 30 years past, right? And having a blast, right? Got some, stuff going on physically, you know what I mean? But so what? I got stuff going on at 62, right? 63 in November. I'm doing great. And I got all this outside stuff, and everything's great on the outside. And you want to know something? It doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing. What matters more than all of it times a billion is how I feel right here. The truth I know about myself and the kind of man that I am. Who I look at in the mirror every morning when I wake up. Who is that guy? Am I comfortable with that guy? Is that guy doing a meditation every morning? Does he know actions that are beneficial to self and others? And does he know actions that are harmful to self and others? And the answer is yes, I do. I'm compelled to say that I was on the way down here. I talked to my sponsor, and I talked to a woman by the name of June G. She's an amazing speaker in AA, an amazing woman, an amazing human being. Here I see a lot of heads nodding, right? She's my favorite speaker ever, all time. She's just this ball of light. And I was talking about the situation, and she said, you know what you should say? She should say, you know, when Dr. Bob gave his last talk, he talked about 3 things. And one of the things he talked about, he said, he goes, one of the things we must guard against in our fellowship is we should guard against rumor and gossip. That this will harm our fellowship terribly. And I have, as of late, been the victim of that. Now, I don't think of myself as a victim at all. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not, that ain't me, man. It's like, you know, it's like, where are you? I'm coming. You know, that's the way my head goes. I don't cotton to that, you know, woe is me crap. You know, I've been the object of some of that stuff lately. And my only response to that, this is my one and only response to all that nonsense, that rumor, that bitterness, is this. My name is Earl Hightower, and I am an alcoholic. And I have been a member in good standing in Alcoholics Anonymous for 34 and a half years. And I have never been more grateful to say that in my life. Thank you very much. Suck on that.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.